So, welcome everybody, welcome to the first video in the Finding Your First Bug series. So this series is really going to be about actual bugs you can find when it's your first ever time finding bugs. They're not necessarily bugs that are easy to find, but bugs that are easier to find than some of the more complex technical ones. The bounties aren't as high, necessarily. Sometimes they can be quite high for these kinds of bugs. However, you can still get one. So this first video is going to be on business logic errors. There's going to be a few more coming out that are really about business logic errors, IDORs, generating impact, showing impact, and these kind of like very basic like first elements to finding your first bug. So the format is going to be quite simple. I'm going to go over some theory, what the bug is, how you can find one, etc., etc. We're going to look at some case studies of some of these bugs in the wild, and then there's going to be a short practical when I'm going to show you how you can use Burp to actually find these bugs. So first off, business logic errors. What are they? Simply, instead of attacking the technical implementation, you attack how the app works logically. So it's when the normal functionality of an app or website allows an attacker to compromise it. On the side, we've got a very simple flowchart. And this is a type of business logic. Instead of looking at if statements and returning values, instead we're looking at the core logic of the application. So get the user ID password, is it blank, send an alert back. That's the kind of level of the app we're working on right now. So often these can be quite simple as things like get something for free, but actually they can get super complex, and we'll see that when we start to look at the case studies where I've got some very simple bugs, then we've got some more complex ones, just to show how the logic can be attacked in really different ways. So when we look at business logic errors, we're looking at really oversights in the application. So many websites or apps have kind of traditional bugs, as in software bugs, where a developer hasn't really fixed something correctly. So we really have to focus on what the security risk is. So the hard part is really finding that impact. But let's not worry too much. Let's look at what makes them great first bugs. There's no need for technical knowledge. A lot of bugs like cross-site scripting, SQL injection, require quite an in-depth knowledge of how do I bypass certain security features, what specific app parts might be compromisable. So really this one is more for looking at kind of the logical flow and really developing your intuition of knowing, hey, that looks a bit weird, that looks a bit odd, how can I fix that? And the best thing to do with it is at websites or apps you're already familiar with. When you know what the flow is, you know, if you're using Uber, which is one of HackerOne's big customers, you would say, go onto the app, put in your destination, request an Uber, wait. Knowing that kind of, okay, here's how a user will actually use it, will give you kind of a leg up. And they're very easy to find because software developers do just leave, like they're forgetful, they don't secure something properly. It requires some patience though. Like they're not technically hard to find, but they do require you to try a lot of things, kind of maybe try an endpoint that's not as vulnerable as you thought it was. And it's kind of a practical way to get you really comfortable with what would be your most used features in Burp. Here we're going to be looking at especially repeater, but also intercept. And I'll show you how we're going to use them later when we look at attacking a real Yahoo asset. So how do we find them? So I've put on 5 steps here because it really is 5 steps. It's just 5 steps where some of them are a little bit longer than others. So the first step, find out what the app does. So understand what's the app for, how are people supposed to use the app, try and use it yourself. You can skip this step if it's an app you already use. If you use Uber and you're attacking Uber, obviously you know what the app does. The second one is really important, which is make sure you know what all the buttons do. If you press a button, what does it do in Burp? Does it access an API? What changes logically, so does an order status change? That's a good one to look at. What might be validated, so if you're sending a username and password, you can pretty much assure the password will be validated. The question then becomes, well, if you hit a different endpoint, is that going to have the same validations like a password's going to have? So really understanding and highlighting features to their technical implementation. You don't really care about what the implementation is. What we're looking for is that flow of how an app is used and what it does on the back end. And then the next step is really just try and play around. So we'll look at some examples in case studies, but simple ones. If there's a number, make it negative. If there's a number, make it really, really high. Can you change one ID to another ID? Can you skip over steps? If you're required in, say, an Uber to request an Uber, then step 2 is the driver then waits until you find one that the driver accepts, and then you get the driver. Can you completely skip that step and force an Uber driver to accept you, where you basically skip over that waiting step? Now 4 is, does this give you a security impact? It's really hard to understand what impact is in general, but really what we're looking for is reputational. So can you do something that would damage a company's reputation, or abuse their reputation in some way to do something malicious to somebody else? Financial, can you get something for free? And then more opportunistic impacts, where an attacker could do this and might do this. However, you can't really sit there and be like, oh, it's definitely going to generate a financial impact, because it may just be 1 or 2 things. So if it gives you a security impact, great. Write up a report. There's going to be a future video on writing reports and how to make it readable and what you should focus on. And then make sure you've got payments set up for your bounty. So we're going to look at some business logic errors in the wild and some case studies. These are going to go from really simple to really complex. Now, the more complex ones are not going to be your first bug. The more complex ones are there to show you how, some of them are as simple as minusing a number, but actually you can get some really good bounties with business logic errors when you really understand the business logic in an application. And what targets you should look for. That's not like a program, but when you've got a program and you've decided on an app, what are you looking for? Like, what are particularly vulnerable? What's worth your time to attack? I've included links on the slides if you are taking screenshots and you access it at a later date, but all the links will also be in the description. So first case study, response program can create bounty table. Now this was a report submitted to HackerOne, and it was a super easy report, right? So the create bounty table is only available for bounty programs. So there's 2 types of programs on HackerOne: bounty programs and response programs. Presumably their bounty programs are paying more. That's the kind of impact we're looking at. So in this case, this researcher has looked at GraphQL, which is the API, the Application Programming Interface, which is a fancy word for meaning that instead of looking at kind of the website, they were looking at the developer tools. So they found an endpoint within the app which is designed for certain accounts, in this case, the bounty program accounts. They then changed a team ID, in this case is a base64 encoded ID, for one with a lower level of access, so our response program, and it worked. So in this case, it's not super complex. All they did was change one ID to another ID in the JSON over there. The impact there is really an account being able to do something it shouldn't be able to do. It's kind of like an idle where it hasn't just got the validation. So if you see an ID, change it. The next 2 or 3 are going to look at really the financial impact, and we're going to look at baskets or cuts. So super, super good place to start looking, because quantities aren't validated usually. So in this researcher, total price manipulation using negative quantities. They added items to their basket, added another item to the basket, changed the quantity from item 2 to -1, and then got item 1 for free. So if we've got one item that's, say, $10 and we buy 3 of them, and then another item which is $10 and we buy -3 of them, they cancel each other out and it's free. So this is super easy to demonstrate as a financial impact, because it's really simple to go, look, you can get something for free. Probably one of the easiest ones to find, and all they did was change a quantity from 1 to -1. That's it. Here we've got able to manipulate order amount by removing cancellation amount and cause financial impact. This researcher had done something very similar, but instead of looking at quantities, there was a cancellation amount that they were charging in a parameter, and all they did was change it to 0, and then they got 3 things. So super easy to kind of manipulate when you add items to the cart. If you're looking at, like, what are they sending, if you send -1, if you can change amounts to 0, it's always good. This is a little bit different. Gaining unlimited bonus points on websites with WooCommerce points and rewards. So instead of looking at directly a financial kind of a cart where you select and pay real money, this is really attacking reward points. So in this business logic error, we've got creating a new order, change the payment gateway to cash on delivery, and internally this then skips a step. So instead of the order being weighted and then once it's like awaiting payment and then being processed and then generating the points on processing, you just skip that entire step and go straight to processing, and that processing status generates reward points, and therefore we're getting free reward points. So different from really looking at kind of direct financial impact, looking at indirect financial impact, especially with reward points that will let you exchange them for vouchers or exchange them for some kind of monetary gain. They're still monetary systems. They often don't have as much scrutiny as a traditional payment gateway does. So more payment stuff. These are both on Uber. And they're both really similar bugs. So lack of proper payment profile UUID validation allows any number of free rides without any outstanding balance. So what they've done here is they have requested a ride and intercept the request. Now they changed the parameter inside that request, payment profile UUID, to a non-existent ID, or an ID that isn't theirs. So their ride disappears, and therefore they don't get any money, and the driver doesn't get any money as well. So they actually rewarded a higher bounty because you could generate that impact of not just the rider getting a ride for free, but also the driver not getting paid for it at all. And finally, we have lack of payment type validation in dial.uber.com allows for free rides. Once again, request a ride, intercept the request, but instead of changing a different one parameter, change a different one to the payment method to a non-existent payment method. So these are 2 examples really on very similar endpoints where just changing a simple parameter can really generate a really big impact. And the impact for both of those is free Uber rides. It's a financial impact. So now we get on to the complex stuff. So once again, I do not expect anybody who is watching, who is at this level, to really find these kinds of bugs. I really wanted to include both of these to show how business logic errors can actually go from really simple, where we're looking at make an ID, an invalid ID, or change a quantity to minus, to this really complex logic where we've got a flowchart to explain it. So this is also sent to HackerOne, harvesting all private invites using leave program, fast track invitation, and security app email forwarding feature. So what happens when someone has a security app private program, but you can't get an invite on HackerOne, is you can email them, and then HackerOne will send an invitation back to you using the email forwarding feature. So you send to a private program, you don't have access to the private program, you get an invitation from the program, then you can join. Now, HackerOne, if you leave a program, gives you the option to fill out a survey and be fast-tracked onto a new program. So they leave that program and fill out the form, and then they get a fast-tracked invitation. Now, that then lets them become members of a new private program. So the first private program, XYZ, is different from the second one. And if you keep on doing this, you can do it again and again and again and again and again. And actually, you could get every single invite on HackerOne. This report, I think, new people should still have a look at. Not because it's a really good report or it's anything you're going to find, but it shows something very interesting, which is that if you don't properly explain in your report what the impact is, how you did it, it actually gets super confusing. So originally this was marked as a duplicate, and it took a while for HackerOne to really understand the impact because the report was a little bit confusing. So the final impact of this was allowing users to basically get all of the private program invitations. Now, that's not necessarily financial because you can't pay to get invites to private programs, but it's a bit more reputational. It's a bit more, you shouldn't be able to do that. So you don't have to be looking at baskets or carts all the time. You can also look at other methods of impact, like just being able to do something you shouldn't. So finally, we have claiming package names in GitLab's automatic package referencer. Now, I'm going to it's a very complex bug, but I think it's interesting to talk about just because of the different impact it has to all of the other ones. So GitLab, it's a website that allows software engineers to upload their code onto as a project. A project can then link to other pieces of code it needs to run. So if you were to download a piece of code, how does it run? How do I get it to work on my machine? Now, if you don't tell GitLab where to find a piece of code, it will assume it's in a central repository, which is okay for most projects if they are in a central repository. However, if the code is internal, so a big company like Facebook, which is used in this example, will have internal dependencies that they don't want to share. Unfortunately, they don't exist on a central repository. However, GitLab will still assume they do. So what someone else can do is really step in, create and upload a malicious piece of code to the central repository, which will then be prompted, a user can then be prompted to download, install, run by GitLab. So we're using the reputation of GitLab to attack a user. It's not social engineering in the way we've tricked somebody, but it is a way to use GitLab's reputation in order to attack a user. So really, it's a function within a website could be exploited to trick a user into installing malicious code. So when we're looking at financial impact or being able to do things you shouldn't be able to do, this is really a more complex and really abuses how GitLab works. And that's what we want in a business logic error. We want to abuse the way an app works in order to get that security impact. So tips, right. My big takeaways from looking at this stuff: payment gateways, point systems are great places to look. Quantities, amounts, whatever they've got there, make them 0, make them 1. They're great ways to start because financial impact is super easy to demonstrate. So you don't need to be like, look at my complex attack scenario. It's very simple. I got something for free. Another thing to look for is ways to skip over steps or to do something at a different account level. So in one of the examples when we were looking at getting points, we were actually bypassing a step for the order. So where the order has to go awaiting payment, processing, delivered, we're instead skipping over waiting for payment to delivered. If you can click a bunch of buttons to get something to go further along, then is there a way you can skip over clicking the buttons and try and do something there? Parameters are always worth fiddling with, whether that's IDs and changing them to IDs that don't exist, to random strings, to really long numbers. They are always worth fiddling with and just seeing what you can do with it. Now, these bugs can be quite complex, but actually a lot of them are really simple in its edit a parameter or being able to do something you shouldn't be able to do on that kind of account. Finding impact can still be very difficult. Financial impact is easy to show, and I'd recommend, if you take nothing away from this video, it would be payment gateways, point systems, financial impact. But other kinds of impact do exist, especially reputational impact, and just being able to do something you shouldn't be able to do. APIs, application programming interfaces, can be gold mines, and it's so important to know how a website or app works first and then attack it. So with that in mind, we're going to move on, open up Burp, open up our target, and using Burp to find business logic errors. So to attack this, we're going to target Flurry, which is a Yahoo product, which is on the Verizon Media scope. And we're going to be using Repeater and Intercept in Burp Community Edition. So real target, real software, software you can access, stuff you can do. If you want to participate at the same time, you will need Burp set up and running on the proxy. You'll need a target, and that's it. That's all you need. So I'm going to go get that all set up, and I will get back to you guys. Okay, so we are all set up here. This is Burp Community Edition. This is the most recent version of Burp. I currently have set up my proxy. I have the options I have configured are just the regular interface there, and I haven't added an SSL pass-through, just in case. So with that in mind, we've got target. My current scope is this. So this is, This is the Flurry app there. And this is just some regex which will capture it. If you want a super easy way to capture regex, all you need to do is you need to pick a just a URL you're interested in, go here, and then just go to, well, add to scope. So I turn it off, so I have everything. Oh yeah, look at that, tons of stuff. So I know I'm looking for Flurry. Add to scope, go in here. It will already do most of the regex, and you just change dev1 to dot plus. There we go. And then OK, and then go here. Show any in-scope item, and it all goes. Cool. So this is our app. This is what the app looks like. So Flurry is an app where developers of Android and iOS apps can install a thing, like a package on their app, and get analytics. What are people clicking on? So that's the first thing we want to know. The first thing we want to know is, what does it do? What does it do? How does it work? So we know what the purpose is. We know we can look for apps. There's a tutorial button. And step 2 is to figure out what all of these buttons do. You know, if I open here in my proxy, go to HTTP history, I want to know from this what happens when I click a button. If I press crash, I get tons of stuff here. Tons of stuff. So there's a lot that happens, but actually it looks like it sends it the same API here, but to 3 different URLs. and we know it's automatically updating. We can see this thing ticking down. So let's have a think here. What are we trying to do? Well, we're trying to work out what we can exploit. So we basically want to click every button. You know, what API endpoints does it hit? We're trying to learn more about how the app works. So I've just seen a monetization thing. Now, is this a case of us buying something, or is this monetization in the app? Unfortunately, we can't access that, which is fine, because what we're trying to do here is we're not trying to be like, oh, does everything work? We're just trying to understand how it works. We've got marketing. Okay, we can create a push campaign. So let's just experiment with it. I did a few of these beforehand. We don't have a goal event, but it looks like it will let us save it anyway. Alright, so let's see here. We know that these two are being hit, and this one is kind of empty, and it's sending some keys with it. But this one here has a bunch of JSON in it. So let's send that to repeater. And here we can see, okay, we've got a company and then another ID there. So step one, let's just make an invalid ID. What happens? Scroll down here. Okay, bad request, unknown identifier. So all we need to do is just go back, send it again. Okay, and that's sending us valid data. So we'll just have a play around here. What if we change that to 8? What do we get? Operation not executed, termination by other failure. So even though we're getting errors, we're interested in what errors are we getting, what do they mean to us. And we're basically just going to edit this request. We've got another app ID here, which seems to match with that app ID. What if they don't match? Change that to a 6. Oh, okay, so something has happened there. So the question then becomes, is that important? Is it a security impact? Have we actually edited somebody else's app? Now, the best way to do that is really to create 2 apps, 1 on each account. So 2 accounts, 2 apps. Can we edit both of them? But there's so many other things we can do here. There's a count. Once we change that to -1, what happens then? It will still let us do it. Now, this is what we want. We want to see it working. The question is, what does it mean that it works? Does that just mean that we have access to someone else's account, which would be super exciting? Does it mean that actually we can break the web app for somebody? So this is all finding business logic errors is. That's it. All we're doing is looking here and being like, let's change a bunch of numbers. Let's, filter activity level. Let's make it an invalid one, right? That's it. We don't have to do anything super complex. We're just trying to work out what gives us internal server errors, and we can just go back. If we edit it, we just Control-Z, press that button over there, end it. So the other way we can really do it is using intercept. So we put intercept on, and then we can see what every single one is. So if we add a message, and we go save, we want to find out where our message was forwarded over here. Oh, I think I might have just gone past it. Sometimes, yeah, this is us sending our message here. So this, before it gets sent though, we can edit it. So we can actually change the body there to be whatever we want and then forward it. So what's the point of that? So really, when we're doing something like that, we're really trying to just sit in between the business logic and the code and try and understand what it does. So finally, I'm going to go over one other useful thing. So I'm going to bring up FuzzDB. Now, you may not have watched my other video. You should. It's very good. It's in like 420p though. It's terrible quality. I don't know what happened. I fixed it for this video, so we're alright. So FuzzDB just has a bunch of pen testing tools. But what it also has is like a bunch of other interesting things in here. So if we go to attack and we go to business logic, would you look at that? There is already business like tools and just lists of things we can try. So let's show how we would do that. So we'll go raw here. Control A, Control C. We'll go into Intruder and let's pick something that's sent to the API here. So we know that dev1 API, let's start with there. So if we look at this, well, what we're really trying to attack there is by adding random parameters in. So we'll go over here and we'll have our little simoleon signs. We're going to clear those because we're just going to add something to the end here. So I'm just going to put in some fake data and that will be replaced by each of our payloads. So we're going to payloads, paste, done. Payloads are in, start attack. So what we're really doing here is using something like FuzzDB and their tools, try and see what we can do. Once again, here we're really looking at length. If you want a more in-depth idea of kind of what we can do with Intruder, you can look at my other video where I go into more detail of using it to things like blind SQL injection. So looking at this, we can already see it's not really doing very much. It looks like these either don't exist or they don't change anything. Here it looks like we're getting just 401s back, in this case unauthorized. So with that in mind, we can look at other ways to attack this. So here's some more things we can do with Intruder. So let's remove the simoleons. And let's look instead at our IDs here. So we have numbers, and we have an ID. We have ID 12. We have more app count 1. So let's instead look at getting most of these in our simoleons. And instead of putting in our own payload, we're going to look over here and we're going to look at numbers. And let's just put in some random numbers from 1 to 100. Let's do 6 random numbers. And we want 0 fractional digits. So that way we're just generating whole numbers. So there's way more in here, right? We've got null payloads, we've got iterators, we've got files, we've got grep, we've got all kinds of things. But business logic areas, we've got numbers. And we can start the attack and we can wait. So what we're looking for here is, can we put in invalid data in here? So instead of wasting time putting in ourselves using repeater, we can instead put it in to Intruder and do it that way. Looks like I'm using old cookies though, and it's somehow refreshed the cookies because it's given me 401s. So let's try and do that, but less terribly. So HTTP history, show any in scope items. That's a post, and that's got some IDs in it. So same thing, Intruder, positions, clear. And let's put in these numbers here, 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 here. And any other interesting numbers? All we're looking for is like random numbers that we can edit. I mean, there's tap behavior ID as well. We can put in that. And then here we're going to numbers, random, from 1 to 1,000, and we'll do 6 again. And if we don't want fractions, or we could try fractions, and start attack. Okay. So once again, we're kind of looking and just prodding it. We're seeing what happens when we do something we shouldn't be able to. Like here, we've got bad requests, probably because we're accessing a ID we shouldn't have access to, because we're getting a working request here. So it's just a method of being able to automatically find business logic errors using Intruder. And you can have a play around here. A lot of these are like super complex, but some good ones, simple lists, and we can use lists from things like FuzzDB. Because it's not just, I mean, those are some common debug things, but there's all kinds of stuff we can throw in there. We can look at, there's stuff like SQL injection, and there's JSON as well, so you can do some JSON fuzzing like this. Honestly, just have a look at stuff like FuzzDB. There's also payload all the things, and you can look at trying to automate this a little bit. I personally just prefer to sit in Repeater and keep this HTTP history open. I like to sit there and being like, okay, I want to just have a go. I just want to press OK, what happens, and like physically see it with my eyes. And send to Repeater, and then sit here and be like, okay, here's an ID that can't exist because it's not a number. What happens? Like doing that kind of. Oh, I messed up the JSON. It's another good way though. So there's all kinds of ways you can mess about and figure out how it works. And honestly, using Repeater and just changing things is so easy, such an easy way to approach this. Like, we know here that the ID actually probably isn't doing very much because we can change it to a string and it does nothing, right? So I think that's kind of all I've got to show. If you find some really interesting, if you have a look at the activity, you can find even more examples. If you find a good one, why not include it in the comments? Let's share some knowledge. Let's talk about how we found them. If there's some great resources, please share them. Put them on my Twitter. Let's try and create something cool here. So I really hope you've enjoyed this look at business logic errors and how to find them and how you can use Burp to find them, and actually looking at a real target. If you would like more of these videos, if you want me to look at more bugs, send me a message. Why not? I'm on Twitter at InsiderPhD. I'm on YouTube. Don't remember what the YouTube handle is. Sorry. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you soon.